Greetings from the disembodied voice. For those of you who didn't take AP Art History, that means it's Mrs. McConnell podcasting, this time from my cabin in southern Utah. We assigned this article to help you view the question of why music matters through a scientific lens. But we have another agenda. We want to use this article to help you understand what makes evidence credible. That is, what makes it the kind of evidence that you have good reason to trust, and the kind of evidence that your graders at the College Board like to see you use in your research papers. Above all, your College Board graders will be looking to see if you found and evaluated scholarly sources on the subjects you're researching. So what does that mean? Is this assigned reading from The Economist a scholarly source? So let's look at one excerpt from the article. Is Dr. Miller a scholar? Does he have credible academic credentials? Yeah, he's a professor of evolutionary biology at a reputable university. Does this discussion of his findings make this a scholarly source? No. The Economist is in fact a reputable journalistic source. You won't find alien babies or bat boy sightings in The Economist. And in fact, the article talks at length about scholars. It quotes scholars, but if you look at the article itself, just Google the title and The Economist, you'll see that we don't even know who wrote the article. The Economist, while it's a very carefully edited and fact-checked magazine, doesn't usually give its reporters a byline. Timekeeper is just a designation for articles readers might want to save to read later. A scholarly article, according to academic researchers and the ECB, is an article by a reputable academic or expert, usually, though not always, a university professor, whose work is published in a peer-reviewed scholarly journal. So here's a quick summary of the difference between scholarly and popular or journalistic sources. I found this on the internet. The Economist is on the scholarly end of journalistic or popular sources, but it is not a peer-reviewed scholarly source. So here's a screenshot of the website of the JEQ, that is the Journal of Environmental Quality, which is the scholarly journal referenced in the previous slide. Note that the web page indicates that submissions will be reviewed by the editorial board, and another page on the site invites scholars to participate in peer reviews. That's really what makes this source scholarly. Articles and research are checked out by other experts in the field before they're published. Does that mean that the articles are always correct, or that the research is always accurate, or that another researcher would come up with the same data and conclusions? No. But it is still a highly credible scholarly source, and that's the kind of source that will make your AP grader do a happy dance. But while the Economist article that we assigned as homework is not itself a scholarly source, it is a gold mine if what you're digging for is scholarly gold. As we just saw, the Economist article refers first to research by a Dr. Jeffrey Miller at the University of New Mexico. So let's start hunting. One search engine that our students find particularly helpful is Google Scholar. I recommend that you bookmark this site on your devices. You'll visit it often this year. So in this case, I found gold right away. The great news appears on the right with the magic words PDF, or the magic word PDF. That means there's an article or source that I can download. Hooray! And here you see a screenshot of the downloaded article, which actually turned out to be the first chapter of a book in draft form. This is the chapter that I edited for your reading. Note that if you were including the source in a research paper, you'd want to make sure that the book actually got published, and you'd probably want to get a final version of the chapter. And it's a good thing I checked. It turns out that the author changed his title. I'll bet Dr. Miller's editors told him that The Mating Mind would attract more buyers than The Evolution of Music Through Sexual Selection. But further Google search, note I didn't even go to Google Scholar this time, reveals that a PDF of the book is available. Again, hooray! Notice that I also find a review of the book in the New York Times. That's a journalistic, not a scholarly source, a respectable journalistic source. But it might still give me some insights into just how relevant this scholar's work is and how well it's been received. So, here's a screenshot from the New York Times review. Note that the reviewer is not entirely convinced. Finding disagreement between sources, what we call finding a fight, is a great way to show that you've considered what the ECB calls multiple perspectives. And who is the reviewer? A curator at the Museum of Natural History. So he sounds like a pretty credible fellow himself, although you would want to dig further to check out his credentials. So are you getting the picture? Think of yourselves as detectives. You want to get out your flashlights and keep chasing down dark alleys for clues about your sources. The chase will lead you to further sources, which will be a big help when you're writing your research papers. So here's a screenshot of a Google Scholar search for Robin Dunbar. He's the scientist who makes the argument that music's evolutionary advantage comes from group bonding. Still more gold here, 2 downloadable PDFs. One of these is up on Moodle, but amazingly, we did not assign it. Note that Google Scholar also gave me plenty of material on the third scholar discussed in the Economist article, Harvard language theorist Steven Pinker. The downloadable PDFs include an entire book, which I also put up on Moodle but did not edit down into an assignment. See, there are limits to my wickedness. So we're going to talk a lot more about scholarly searches in our third unit. For now, let me just note that your participation in Capstone gives you free access to the EBSCO Scholarly Database, which is another very helpful search engine that you should bookmark. We will put this link up on Moodle. In my experience, at least on my computer, it doesn't reliably bookmark. I just leave it as on my desktop as a Word document and paste it in when I need it. Any rate, here's my same search in EBSCO. Note that the search found different articles than Google Scholar did, and it found them on a related topic: sex, music, and consumer behavior. That sounds like a fun research topic to me. One last search engine, and I'm done, I promise. My favorite search engine, and the one students seem to have the most success with, is JSTOR, which is short for Journal Storage. Our school has purchased a subscription to this search engine, and the username and password that you'll need to use are up on Moodle. So, once again, I searched Jeffrey Miller sexual selection, and once again, the search engine spit out different sources. I actually pulled up the first source and read the abstract. You'll be pleased to know that according to Dr. Miller, nice guys don't finish last. I hope he's right. And that's enough about searching for sources for now. We will talk lots more about search engines when you get to your first dress rehearsal research project. For now, just recognize that scholarly, peer-reviewed sources by credentialed academics are highly credible sources. Again, that doesn't mean that the esteemed professors always get it right, but it does mean that your AP grader will like this source. And that will help you stay ahead of those other deer.